Awesome round one for here today of day two of the SCG Cincinnati con here, Jeff. Sorry, I was going to see SCG Open so bad there that it made me stutter. We've had that vernacular for what 10 years, and now we're SCG Con. So let me make sure that we get that right. But we're going to be going through our second round of the day. Both these teams sitting at 7-2. We're going to be going back. Steven Tuchek here with this Demir Death Shadow deck that you and I are both big fans of, and he's going to be playing against four-color Delver from Austin. Would you pronounce that as OLED?
I'm gonna pronounce it OLED.
Apologies, Austin, if you watch this back in the future. If I butchered your name, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Looking at this deck list, yeah, it looks like Austin's four-color Delver list is an 80 card list.
Yeah, there is a Yorion in this list. This is a list for sure. I pulled this up on MTG Melee, and I was like, wait, is this real? And then I take a look at all of it. There's some really cool stuff going on in here. So it looks like Grixis Delver, right? You've got Orcish Bowmasters, Dragon Rage Chandler, Murktides, Delver, Brazen Borrower, all that stuff. It's got a counterbalance main, but then it's actually just splashing for fourth Aerolingus and Prismatic Ending. And then, you've got your Lightning Bolts, your Daze, your Brainstorms, your Force of Wills, but you're also looking at Swords of Plowshares and a Sauron's Ransom. I want to say Saruman. Got to make sure you get the Lord of the Rings names correctly. It's Sauron's Ransom as well here.
So I'm super excited about this. One thing that's interesting just about the Yorion existing as a card is there's always just that little voice in the back of your head that's just like, hey man, just 20 more cards. Just 20 more cards.
It's only 20. It's not really that many. Yeah. It's just 20 more cards.
Yeah, and especially in modern and legacy, so many cards do similar things that you can play those extra cards without having to worry about it diluting your deck. This format has Ponder, Preordain, and Brainstorm. We'll just play some Preordains, and they'll be the additional Brainstorms. They're not as good, but it's fine. We'll do it. But you get to play cards like fourth Aerolingus, which I have heard a lot about this card. I have never seen it cast.
It's extremely good. I'll let you know that.
Yeah, a creature-based fireball that then allows you to start drawing cards at the end of your turn. It seems reasonable at the very least.
Yeah, we've seen the Monarch do some absurd things in Legacy. We'll have to see if it comes up in this match, because some of these games can go relatively long, and that can be very, very good. Now, we're seeing one of the things that makes Steven's version of this deck a little bit good, right? Like you were talking earlier, there's only 2 copies of Delver Secrets in Steven's deck, and I might be inclined to play his version if you're just always going to have Delver Secrets on turn 1, which seems great. Look, you'll have to play 2 of his cards, you're always going to have turn 1. But you see the Street Race instead of the Troll of Khazad-dûn, and that is a reanimate that's targeting it here. Now, it does look like it is going to get met with a Daze from Austin here, so it looks like that's not going to happen. And yeah, we have almost no permanents in play, so it looks like that's going to be a Tundra from Austin and a Swords of Plowshares is going to take care of that Delver. So just like your normal turn 3 and turn 4 in most games, 1 permanent in play. I love yeah, there we go, done. Love it. I am in my lane. I'm moisturized. I'm happy. I'm so glad to be here. There are no permanents to play on turn 5.
This is exactly what the Magic I want to be watching.
This is Legacy at its best, absolutely.
And yeah, like you said, the reason that we used to play 4 Delver of Secrets was because we always wanted exactly 1 on turn 1, and we wanted to protect it. I'll play 1 if that Delver of Secrets can be my companion.
Yeah, absolutely. It does look like this Force of Will is going to be aggressively casting this Brainstorm here, and I don't blame Austin here. This is going to be a game where he doesn't have lands here. He does have a draw step, an extra draw here from the Bauble, if he remembers it here. And it does look like we're going to be fighting over everything here. And I love this from Steven as well. This is going to be a low resource game. The first person to get out ahead is going to be very far ahead in these spots. And looks like a lot of the lands here off that Brainstorm from Steven, but there is a fetch land here. So he's going to be able to maybe get rid of at least one of these here. And that's what looks like the setup's going to be. we're gonna be
3
going on.
cards on this deck, 0 permanents in play. This
It's
is true Magic.
I think we're on turn 6 right now too. Just this is Magic at its purest. Everybody at home, you are getting to see the purest form of Magic here, the way that it was intended. No fun for anyone. This is the way it's supposed to be.
Well, the way you determine what turn it is you just like you ask both players, "Hey, have you made all of your land drops this game?" And I think I think Steven has made every land drop this game.
Yeah, I was gonna say Steven's lands have either been wastelanded or dazed multiple times this game. So yeah, there's it's I've joked about this in Legacy. Sometimes you have one land, but you might use it multiple times in turn, and you might play it multiple times in a game. So
Yeah. It's you haven't lived until you've cast a free spell and then dazed your own free spell because you need the Elvish Spirit Guide out of it.
oh yeah, absolutely. Now super far pull ahead here from Steven. That is a Death Shadow that got put into play, and this is going to be backed up by a Murktide Regent as well. And Austin doesn't have another way to deal with this for free, like say a Force of Will. So what he needs here is a white source into a source of plowshares. If not, this game is going to end very quickly from this point.
Yeah, looking at Austin, it is. I mean, it's clear to us, but it also seems very clear to Austin that this game is pulled pretty far out of reach, especially without any lands to cast the spells. Um, which is unfortunate because I was really hoping to see Austin with 6 lands casting fourth Aerlingus, but we have 2 more games for that.
Yeah, and so I like Austin's list a lot. Like it looks really cool. I think it's great that he's doing this well in turn with a list this cool and innovative. I worry about it in a matchup like this where you have to be as lean and efficient as possible. Yeah, his deck is going to be more powerful on pure like raw card quality because you're playing 4 colors, you're just playing all the best spells. But the thing is, Steven's deck is extremely linear, right? Everything costs like 1, maybe like the average mana cost in his deck is like 1.2 or something like that. It's just a whole bunch of 1 drops, a tiny bit of 2 drops, and you've got Daze, you've got Force of Will, you've got Wasteland, and Austin's playing an 80 card deck. Like, oh, it's only 20 cards more. It's still 80 cards. So you see there that you're playing Daze, right? Like he got Dazed back, he got Wastelanded back, and the game swung a lot in Steven's favor from there because he only needs 1 land to operate in a lot of these turns, and Austin needs quite a bit more. He's trying to cast a card like for Aerlingus. He's trying to cast 3 and 4 draws in his deck. So he wants the game to go a little bit longer. So any games that play out like they did in that first game that we see is going to be a big advantage for Steven here.
Yeah, and it's very interesting the 80 card dynamic when you only get a 15 card sideboard. We see in modern a lot where when people are playing 80 card decks, they kind of they have more toolboxy packages, stuff like that, where uh they can pre-sideboard a little bit cards that are good in specific matchups, but still have a use or can be cycled or thrown away for something in other matchups. It looks like Jack's list is not like that. It looks like Jack's list is what a lot of what Delver wants to be doing, just more cards, more of it. And then that leads you to the problem where uh one of the sideboard cards is already taken up by the companion. So like you have an 80 card deck and now because you have a companion, you only have a 14 card sideboard. And your 14 cards need to span that entire 80 card deck when you don't have a lot of reliable ways to access those cards like you typically do in Legacy because your deck is 20 cards bigger. Um, there's still like the brainstorms, the ponders. I think that's it. I don't even see any other real card selection tools outside of Mishra's Bauble, which doesn't really count. It just draws you a card.
You have to
Um,
try really hard for it, but it can do a little bit of card, manipulation. You like look at the on top card of your deck, you have a fetch land. That's a lot of extra work. Yeah.
it's so much work. It costs you life against a deck where the 20 life you get is very important. Um, and it's it's looking like there are 4 one-ofs in this sideboard and 5 two-ofs in this sideboard. And I'm honestly not sure how good the sideboard in general is against Steven's deck. Like you got Pyroblasts, but the creatures aren't blue. You've got yeah, that's honestly that's really all I see to board in to an 80 card deck.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point that you bring up. One of the great things, I've played a lot of the Demir, Death Shadow, Delver, Strategy Secrets, and Legacy. And one of my favorite things about my sideboard is you can make a very lean one, right? You can have a lot of like 1 and 2 card sideboards for specific situations. And since your deck generally has 4 Ponder, 4 Brainstorm, you're, going through your deck so much. If you have extra any, like, sometimes we have Preordain as well in those decks. If any way to go through them quickly in a game, you're gonna find those sideboard cards at a much higher rate than in other formats. In modern and pioneer and in standard, like you have to draw those sideboard cards. You have to like manually get there. When you're playing legacy, like you're gonna see half your deck every game, even if it's only like 5 or 6 turns. And so your sideboard cards have much bigger impacts in a lot of the spots than they do in say other formats.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like you said in Legacy we have a lot of one of sideboards because the card selection is so good. You see so many cards. And but I remember years and years ago in standard and extended when that existed, our sideboards were like 4-4-4-3. You picked the matchups that you wanted. You picked 4 cards that you wanted in your sideboard, and you chose one of them to have 3 of, because you were only drawing 1 card a turn. You wanted to be able to see those cards, and it's been interesting seeing even standard do more adoption of the, "Oh, well, I'm gonna have one of this in my sideboard, and then one of something else that does something similar but has upside in another matchup," and stuff like that. And the mentality of going from 3 to 4 cards, 3 to 4 of in a sideboard gives you a marginal chance to draw it, but going from 0 to 1 gives you an infinite percent chance of being able to draw it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now it looks like this thought is going to hit Soren's Ransom, which is a card advantage spell. It's a new 3 mana factor fiction type card that's been put in these decks. But interesting hand from Austin behind here. He's got 2 bolts along with a Swords of Plowshare here. So he's got removal for some of the cheaper stuff that Steven can do in his deck. He's got a Swords of Plowshare to kind of take up some of the stuff. But also, you got to be a little worried about bolts when you're playing the Death Shadow deck. But knowing they're there, Steven can kind of play around that a lot more. It looks like Steven's going to go ahead and help out one of his teammates here. That life total should be at 18 for Steven as well. Probably hasn't updated it on the stuff that we have at the feature match area for him here.
I'm trying to see if it's updated on the life pad.
Yeah, we've already had some problems of life totals here in the feature match area. Let's not have another one. So it does look like Steven's going to go ahead and lead off with a Brainstorm here in his main phase. Maybe try to conceal it if he's looking for lands or not from Austin. But like I said, I love aggressive Brainstorms in these formats, especially with how quick the format is now.
Yeah, it feels bad when you get dazed, but when you're playing against an 80 card deck, you feel like you're a little bit less likely to get dazed. And sometimes you don't, like when it's brainstorm, you usually care a little bit more about whether or not it resolves, because either you're looking for a land or you have a fetch land, you want to shuffle away some of the bad cards. But it doesn't always feel bad when a ponder gets dazed, right? Like you gave them the opportunity to use that daze, but it saved you from losing to the daze at a different time. And like sometimes you want to use that ponder as bait.
Absolutely. And the way this ponder is getting resolved for Steven here, you got to believe he's just looking for one of those lands here to kind of unlock the rest of his hand. And this is kind of what we talked about a little bit. We alluded to in game one. This is not the game that Steven wants to play. His deck can go long, it can play well in the long games, but Austin has a much more robust deck later into the game. He's got 3, 4, and some 5 drops. If you consider, 4 Aerolingus can go to pretty much any mana value. So the longer the game goes, I got to say maybe it favors Austin just a little bit here, but Stevens deck can do some really, really powerful stuff as well. So definitely not exactly where he wants to be, but it looks like he did find a land, so he's going to be able to do some multiple things a turn here from here on out.
Yeah, and also worth noting that since Steven cast that brainstorm, missed the land drop, cast ponder, was able to find a fetch land. But he also knows that the path is probably clear for a lot of these spells because if I'm in Austin's position, my opponent has just cast Brainstorm. I know they've brain locked themselves. They missed a land drop and now they're casting Ponder. I'm probably firing any counter spell I have into it.
Yeah, I definitely would have there if he had the spot. It looks like Steven actually wanted the top card of his deck here as well. It didn't crack that Flunch Drain, so he should have a very powerful hand from here because it should be, unless he needed the third land there, it should be all spells from here. It looks like it is going to be a Wasteland. Definitely a high priority target in this matchup because of the fact that Austin's deck, you can take a look at where some of the problems is here. He's got a little choked on mana being 4 colors. He's got a land in play that only produces 1. He's also got Wastelands in his deck, so if you can choke Austin on certain colors of mana, like the white mana that Steven did here, and let's say he has a Murktide or something like that behind here, if Austin doesn't have a white mana and a way to kill it, this game can end very quickly for Steven here.
If production's listening, we can get a look at Steven's hand. I think I saw like 3 Death Shadows at one point, but it may have just been 3 black cards.
And here we go again. This is an Orcish Bowmaster's coming to play, picking off one of these format-defining 1/1s for 1 that, God, this part is so wild to me in these formats because now we can start changing a lot of our threat density. And this is another reason why I really, really like these Dimir Death Shadow decks is they're not as soft to Orcish Bowmasters as some of these decks that we've seen in the past. And there we go. One of those lightning bolts from Austin that we've had since turn 1. He's gonna go ahead and pick off that Orcish Bowmasters, but Steven's got more in the tank behind this as well. He's got another copy of that. He's got a Delver of Secrets. He's got I think a Force of Negation. I think I saw here tons of stuff to work with. And it looks like
Yes.
Austin. What's that? Sorry.
Steven's hand is insane, and it's really just looking for a little bit of extra damage dealt to him. All he needs to do is lose a couple more life. He turns on both of those Death Shadows. There's another Orcish Bowmaster in his hand. He's got a Force of Will, but no blue card behind it, I don't think, and a Street Wraith. So,
Yeah.
or no, the blue card behind the Force of Will is a Delver of Secrets, which
Yeah.
I think at this point in the game is probably just going to be the 5 mana required to cast the Force of Will. He's got so many threats in his hand that I don't think it's worth casting that Delver of Secrets and losing the only blue card in your hand.
It looks like that's a Pyroblast that took care of the Murktide region, which probably should be in the graveyard, not in the exile zone here, but we are in a 3-minute delay, so it's going to be hard to fix stuff in real time. Wasteland really rearing its ugly head here in this matchup and really putting Austin's deck into the blender here because now we're down to a single blue mana for Austin here, putting Steven firmly in the lead here with the Delver of Secrets coming up behind as well as another Death Shadow. Steven firing one. Is that a Death Shadow's firing on all cylinders because his life total needs to be updated here quite a bit. It looks like.
Yeah. I think we're behind. When it was at 16, I did see him crack a fetch land, crack a fetch land and cycle
Street Wraith, yeah.
But I thought Steven was still at 13.
Yep, not sure. I'm sure he's lower than 13. He's got a Death Shadow into play. So now, Fetchland was found by Austin. This is going to unlock all of the colors in his deck. So if he has something to be able to answer some of the stuff, he should have maybe a way to do here. We know he has a Bolt in his hand. It looks like it's going to be, I think that's a Scrubland.
Yeah, that looks like a Scrubland to me. I'm not sure what Austin is planning to cast off of it. Maybe he's got a prismatic ending, or maybe it's this engineered explosive.
Yeah, I think he's got a Source of Plows here in his hand. Yeah, this is one of the Mystical Archive source. Oh, there we go. There is a prismatic ending, so
Oh, there's the
a little
prismatic
bit
ending.
of both.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, he's a little bit too choked on mana to be able to cast and blow up the engineered explosives that it looks like is in his hand.
Also, unfortunate is that Steven's at 11 and not 12. If Stevens were at 12, their Source of Plowshares would have been a very clean 2-for-1, which would have been awesome against the Death Shadow, but not in the cards for Austin here. He's going to fire off a Ponder here as well.
Yeah, it is. It is unfortunate, though. I mean, there is the potential line of using Swords to Plowshares on Death Shadow to bring Steven back up to 13 and maybe turn off future Death Shadows if there's no other way for him to deal damage to himself.
So it looks like Ponder is going to happen here, and it looks like Orcish Bowmaster is going to come in and make an effect here off the Ponder, the extra card drawn. Bowmaster is going to deal damage here, grow the army. So the army's at 3 now.
I mean, this a sword of plowshares on the army will take out that Death Shadow. Yep, that's exactly what
That
we
is
see.
super clean. It does look forced negation with a blue card is going to exile that source of pleasure. So that is huge for Steven here. Had that resolved, like you said, that would have been very clean for Austin here. And even would be able to clean up the entire board if he wanted to, because I'm assuming he could find a red source here for the bolt that's sitting around in his hand as well.
I think that's what we're going to see right now. I mean, Steven being at 11, I imagine that bolt is going into the face of the Death Shadow. But unfortunately for Austin, we know that Steven has another one to back it up.
Not something you get to see very often. Bolt take out a Death Shadow, but there are spots where it works out.
Yeah, the most common interaction I see regarding Bolt and Death Shadow is Bolt my face.
Yeah, bolt my own face. Yeah, or kill you because you moved all in on a shadow, but you had to a lot of the times.
Right.
Yeah. I always have to like hold my breath when I'm in this spot because I'm like, man, if they have Street Wraith here in response, like it's just the absolute worst
Yeah.
moment ever. But I don't think Austin can play around that at this point.
Yeah, in Austin's situation, I'm gonna be feeling like if my opponent has literally anything, I'm cooked. So I have to do this now, and like my opponent has already had something for the swords to plowshares. So
Yeah,
I don't think he's also going to have another street wraith for the lightning bolt.
it looks like we have a reanimate out of Austin's deck here as well, and it's going to target the Death Shadow in Stevens graveyard. Now, there was something that almost happened earlier. I thought about it. The Bowmaster's turn when the Ponder was going on. I thought for a moment if like the last trigger off the Bowmaster, if Steven could have maybe this is super deep and you'd have to really think about it, and I'd be more inclined to do it against a 60 card deck than an 80 card deck. But I can't remember if he had information he knew the swords was in Austin's hand or not. I think it might have been the last game when he cussed that Thoughtseize, but maybe the last ping from the Bowmaster should have hit himself to put himself out of range of Source of Monsters being able to 2-for-1 himself. But like, I don't know, that's like a really small, tight thing, but maybe correct in the spot.
Yeah, I feel like Orcish. I had to actually look up Orcish Bowmasters to make sure that it said any target and not,
It does say not opponent's stuff. You can
Yeah,
target yourself. Okay.
yeah. So I'm actually surprised to not see more Orcish Bowmaster ping myself. It looks like that is
Yeah, it's
that.
gonna be game. Now, I was going to say, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you can look at Steven's graveyard and see multiple wastelands over there. Austin never really got to like get going in this match, right? Who's always a turn, maybe at 1.5 turns behind because of how impactful Wasteland is on a 4-color deck. The dazes were super impactful, and then very timely force of will slash force of negations from Steven here were able to keep his threats on the board and get him through in that game.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a tale as old as time, right? Where the Wasteland deck plays against the 4-color deck, and the Wasteland deck wastelands the 4-color deck.
Yeah, exactly. Now it looks like we're going to be cutting back to Anu here for just a moment.